and welcome to the latest edition of Sleeve Notes. I'm Kevin Archer, and I'm delighted that our guest on this latest edition is Richard Swan. We're going to be enjoying some of your music and getting the chance to hear some of the inside track on how they've come about, your style and what influences them and so on. But let's kick off with some music straight away. Tell us about the first track we're going to hear.
Ever Taking. So I'd been playing kind of what I was enjoying the sound of and hadn't really written any songs up to that point. And I was enjoying these chords and playing them, and then a line came to my head, and it was, "Don't come crying to me over your own life," which seemed a bit brutal. But then I thought, no, because it stuck. So I kind of expanded that and seen where it would take me. And it sounds like a harsh song, but it's written towards myself in terms of, you make these terrible decisions and in your gut, it's not right. And then when it doesn't work out, you feel all sorry for yourself. And in the back of your head, you're like, don't come crying to me. Like, you've done this, it. So it's on that kind of level.
Okay, and as one of your first songs, some people would think, oh, this was one of my early songs. How do you feel about it now?
I like it, yeah. I think it was the first step into being a little bit harsh or a little bit sharp with a bit of wit to it, but still having a kind of a kindness that comes around. So yeah, a little bit of brutal honesty was nice.
Let's have a listen. Ever Taking.
And don't come crying to me over your own life, your terrible decision making. You've spent your days ever taking. You've caused all your own strife. And all this time that you've been faking, you've never seen that you're ever taking. Here you come, surprise, surprise. You got that thick glaze on your eyes. Who've you wronged? Who could it be? Oh, for God's sake, don't tell me. Let me guess, this is the end of the world for you, my friend. Seems you took them for a ride. Actually, I'm on their side. So don't come crying to me over your own life, your terrible decision making. You've spent your days ever taking. You've caused all your own strife. And all this time that you've been faking, you've never seen that you're ever taking. And I just want you to be well, because in the end it's what a true friend would tell. You've played this game for so long, so listen close and please just don't take this wrong. Stop, keep coming to me over your own life. Your terrible decision tracking has left your world ever lacking. You've caused all of this strife. And all this time that you've been faking, you've never seen that you're ever taking. Tug those laces tight, you're in for a fight. And drag those bones up off the ground and walk into that night. Pull your chin up high and wipe your red eyes dry. I'll lend a hand when you need that backing man. So don't stop trying to lead a better life. Your terrible decision tracking has left your world a little lacking. But don't you fear, there's always time. And just take it all day by day and try your best, that's all I'll say.
Okay, that's Ever Taking, the first track in our session of Sleeve Notes here, talking with Richard Swan from Lowick. Interestingly, Richard, as you introduced that to us, you said it had a sort of a sharpness and so on, and a certain wit How would you characterise your music? Would you say that was a kind of strand that runs through a lot of your songs?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I'd like to think that there's an honest seam that runs through them all, whether it's a part of myself or even just something that I find funny or a bit harsh. I feel like that's important to have in music. Otherwise, it kind of becomes an amalgamous, radio-friendly kind of. It's not authentic, and I like to write things that have some authenticity to them.
Because at a recent open mic, I actually introduced you as possibly, Lowick's poet and troubadour, and there is that. I don't know how that would fit with you, but there is that sense of not just entertaining. There's a sense of sort of having something that's got some sharpness, some point, even almost some satire to it. Yeah. Yeah,
I would love that. I would love to be a travelling bard that comes and speaks truth to the king or whatnot. That'd be a great title.
Well, we'll come to your travels and how you're sort of performing a little later on. Let me ask you about your musical background growing up. What did you listen to? What did your family listen to? Were there any musical influences in early days?
The music of the house mainly came from my mother. She had a very, very wide taste. So I knew the majority of the Beatles songs off by heart at a very young age. There was Aretha Franklin, even up to Moby. It was just such a diverse bracket of influences. But no one played an instrument. There was never that kind of practicality towards the music. So my drive came much later in life when I realised how much I enjoy and love music, but I can't replicate that in my own time. There's no way to use that energy or that kind of passion towards something of my own. It was only until one of my stepbrothers at the time bought a little electric ukulele, and he was playing away on it, and he was very accomplished. And I was walking past the music shop, and I seen the gap in the window where his was, and just underneath it was its acoustic little brother. And I was like, and just something inside me told me that I needed to grab it there and then and work on something.
Was that exciting?
It was also really scary. Like the confidence I had to pick up the instrument was next to nil for a few months. Obviously, when you first get something and you've never had that kind of tactile experience, it doesn't feel right in the hands. It doesn't sound right compared to the tutorials that you're watching, it's a very big step to have the confidence to make noise before you make music.
And how did you begin that? You say tutorials. Did you look at stuff online? Did you buy books? What got you going? Were you taught?
YouTube, no, all self-taught. No, I haven't had a music lesson before. So it was a case of looking things up online, even little chord charts. I had a close friend at the time who knew how to play guitar. So he kind of taught me really rough ideas of things, and we'd kind of figure stuff out together, but it wasn't necessarily an actual tuition.
And did you start by playing obviously well-known tunes and covers and so forth?
No. So I don't have the attention span. I've only recently had the ability to do covers, and to me it was picking it up, finding a sound, and then the sound very much drives the inspiration from there on. So it would be finding a few chords that I enjoy, and then maybe setting them to one side for a while and thinking what kind of melody could go with it. And it was a very slow process, but it was a fun one. It was a lot of play and experiment.
Well, perhaps we'll talk a little later about how you've kind of honed that in recent times. But let's talk about the next track you have for us.
Wind Blows. So this is a nice track because I'd written some quite sharp and witty ones. This was much more personal to me, and especially being very new to performing and things like that and songwriting. There's a lot of people who kind of manifest reality. They go out and they make, their they manufacture what kind of situation they want to be in, and successfully so. And I'm very much not like that. I'll take a back seat and I'll just follow that river, So Wind Blows to me was, the opening verses are very personal, like physically, my body's a patchwork of scars. I'm kind of weird, so it feels like there's a pressure to fit in somewhere and to make sure that you're not too far out of the norm to be successful, and just all these worries when you're performing. And then the chorus comes in and it's like, well, I don't know where I'm gonna go when that wind blows, so I'll just kind of sit back and see. And it's about refinding yourself. When it says, I'll float back on the tides to you, it's back to myself, because it's a totally different situation. It's another side of myself that I'm expanding. So uncharted waters.
My body is a patchwork of scars, my mind imprisoned by others' bars, a cannon on the loose without a fuse. Dulled by the pressure not to be weird, fearing I'll be measured and tiered, an anchor round my neck I seem to choose. Follow my gut with strength to utter all these words without a stutter, and now it's time to cut myself loose. But I don't know where I'll go when that wind blows. I'll follow my truth through and through. I'll ride a horse with no saddle, a boat with no paddle. I'll float on the tide back to you. And I wanna feel that breeze of change, that ease of self to be deranged, that confidence to walk in my own skin. I'll take a step to wear that pride and not feel like my value rides on whether I actually fit in. And I don't know where I'll go when that wind blows. I'll follow my truth through and through. I'll ride a horse with no saddle, a boat with no paddle. I'll float on the tide back to you.
That was Wind Blows by Richard Swan, who's our guest on this edition of Sleeve Notes. You're listening to Sleeve Notes on LCB, broadcasting on Live 365. Richard, we touched on, but perhaps you can develop a little bit about your songwriting process. You suggested that really from early on you weren't doing covers, you weren't trying to sort of emulate somebody else, but having the instrument in your hand kind of sort of inspired you to express yourself. Is there a pattern that you've developed, or does it vary from song to song? Is it the wind blowing as you've just been singing about?
Yeah, it's been quite a natural process. Having not been someone who sings and plays until getting the bouzouki on a whim of all things. Once I'd picked it up, it played very much like a ukulele, which I'd played years and years ago, and it's so easy to play and it sounds so sweet on the ear. A lot of the songs have been just finding chord progressions that I really enjoy and just playing them over and over, and then a line will come to me and it's almost like I believe the ancient Romans, maybe the Greeks, I think it was the Romans, but they had a concept of genius where no one person was a genius. A genius lived in the walls. It was like a little idea goblin, and every now and then the little idea goblin would tap you on the shoulder and give you a genius idea. So to me, if I'm playing something and a line hooks to those chords and fits, that's the sign for me to expand on that. So there's been a few songwriting instances where I've written something out without music and it's been super lyrical or almost too rigid and poetic, and I haven't been able to get music to it. Whereas with this, it's been far more free flow of getting that hook and just expanding, because there's something going on. It's there for a reason, and you're relating to it with the music, and it's interesting to kind of reverse engineer that to see what's going on in your own mind.
Tell us about the next track you have for us.
This is Oh Love O Mine, and like I said, I bought the bouzouki on a whim, and there's innumerable folk songs about lost love. It's a very, soul-bearing thing to have a folk song, and I thought I'm not really wired that way, so it would be disingenuous to write a lost love song from that same perspective. And I'd recently quit smoking, so that was a love of mine that I had lost in recent history. So I took it as a sign to write a love song of missing love that had a twist.
And we're going to come to you performing a little later, but I've heard you perform this a couple of times, and you kind of introduce it in a way that doesn't disclose the truth to start with.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. The first few opening lines do get some good looks, and it's worth it just for my entertainment. And
so it's purely selfish, that introduction.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Oh, I love to sow a few seeds of chaos, just to, let people disappoint themselves.
So I suppose we've rather subverted that surprise, but let's have a listen anyway. Oh, love of mine.
Heavy on my chest, hanging on my breath, I can still smell you on my fingers. I miss you to the touch, you gave me such a rush, and all these memories still linger. And I have had to cut you out, but my heart still screams and shouts. I've tried to live with no regrets, but God, I miss you. Cigarettes. Oh, love of mine. Oh, love of mine. And you were like a lover, but I discovered you want to choke me dead, so I've cut you out instead. Like a pillow to the face, I fight your sweet embrace, because your silver tongue is only out to blacken my lungs. Hands are restless, the cat's in distress, petting him non-stop, and now he's got a balding spot. And I have had to cut you out, but my heart still screams and shouts, even though you live to see me killed. I must admit I'm not very thrilled. You total swine. Oh, love of mine. And I have tried to shut you out, but I must admit I still have my doubts. I cried on our fond farewell, but actually I'll see you in hell. Oh, love of mine, you total swine. Oh, love of mine.
Richard, you've mentioned a couple of times now the bouzouki you got on a whim. Just tell us a bit more about the instrument itself and what drew you to it.
It's It's an Irish bouzouki, so it's got 8 strings, but they're done in courses of 2. So they each kind of resonate with themselves, and it's tuned in an open tuning, which I've never played before either. It's quite a traditional instrument, but I after the ukulele, I bought a mandolin on a whim. Again, very impulsive. I can play a lot of things, wide as a lake, deep as a puddle.
So the differences between the mandolin and the ukulele, apart from it's configured in the same way, but the tuning is different.
So yeah, the tuning's different, and I really struggled with the mandolin because it was such a short instrument and all 8 strings are at a higher tension. It was real work. As a second instrument to get was really tough, which is why it was a bit of a risk buying the bouzouki so many years later, because it could have very easily gone down the same path. But because of the full scale length of it, there's very little tension on the strings. It's so easy to play. It very much reminds me of a ukulele in terms of playability.
If you said bouzouki to me, my initial response will be, well, a Greek instrument. So an Irish bouzouki, how does that sort of hybrid come about? What's the distinctive characteristic then of an Irish one? Is it the instrument shape or? Generally,
yes. So when I was looking it up, and I don't know if this is a sort of folk old wives' tale, but the story goes that an Irish folk musician went to Greece and seen the Irish bouzouki, absolutely fell in love with it, bought one, took it home, played it for years, and then ended up breaking it. So he took it to his local luthier, and the luthier was obviously Irish luthier, was like, I have no idea how I'm going to build you one of these. How about I build you something very similar but with a mandolin body? And that's the apparent origin of the Irish bouzouki.
And is there a distinctive sound that it has? Have you compared it with or does it relate more to the Greek bouzouki than the mandolin, for example?
No, I think it's closer to a mandolin because of the flatness of the body. It has a much higher chime to it, whereas the Greek bouzouki has a real nice teardrop back sound. I feel like that gives it a nicer warmth and a rounder. It's also a different tuning as well. But.
And I think you've hinted earlier, but does having this instrument kind of talked earlier about your track where the wind blows? Is having this instrument giving you a bit of direction in terms of your songwriting and melodies and so on because of the nature of the instrument?
Oh, that is a good question. I don't know, because I'm not deep into folk music, so I think the way I play it probably isn't a traditional standard. I think the way the chord progressions sound, like if you go from a B minor into a G, it's a very lovely drop, and I feel like that brings out certain emotions or certain vocal melodies that would fit with the context. But I honestly don't know if it would be a conscious drive towards something. To be fair, the way that I write music is probably follows a very subconscious trail. I don't know if I'm clever enough to direct the music any other way. I kind of follow what feels right, and if it doesn't quite fit, then I'll find something else.
Do you try your music out on anybody? Do you, before you perform it, have you got a sort of a sounding board, or is you just sort of using your own sort of response and judgment?
My partner's very kind. She's very biased, so I don't know if I trust her all the time. But yeah, no, she's quite a good person to bounce off, because if I'll be sat there playing and practicing something, and I'll put it down and I'll go, if I can hear her still humming it in the other room, then I know it's got something there. It's
the hum test.
Yeah, it's the earworm test.
Yeah, it's not the old grey whistle test, but the young version of that. Okay, so next track for us, Richard.
This one's called Tidal Brave, and it's a play on tidal wave, and it's kind of a personal take on sort of responsibilities and expectations that you put on yourself or can have put on yourself, and how much you take on or reject. And It's quite a personal song about that. It sounds very depressing if you're to just read the lyrics, but it's a song about defiance and coming away with making your own choices.
That was Tidal Brave, one of the tracks that Richard has brought to share with us. Richard Swan, who's our special guest on today's edition of Sleeve Notes on LCB. Richard, we mentioned earlier that perhaps the term troubadour, which I sort of fairly or unfairly, I don't know, put on you the other day, but one of the elements of a troubadour would perhaps be a satirical element. And I don't know if I'm right in this, but the next track we're going to hear, Surprise, Surprise, definitely has a strong... It's laced with satire.
Oh,
would you agree?
Absolutely. There's a venom to this song. And the reason was I struggle with, insomnia, basically. So I was lying awake and, your head's rushing through all these problems or perceived problems, stresses, the list of needs to do's, things that don't need done, things that aren't even worth thinking about. And then all these unsolvable problems. So I'm lying there and there's the first lyrics, another politician dodges all his tax. surprise, surprise. And then I started reeling, and I'm like, I don't have time for this. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I need to get up and write this down, get it out of my system. So that's why it's so venomous, is because it was 3 o'clock in the morning for the 30th year running. And just all these sort of universal problems that have been going on they're just like, ever since I was a kid, I've heard all these things repeating. And I just thought, why am I lying awake? Like, surprise, surprise. It's not surprising at all. And it's quite a weight to take off, to write that down and then be like, well, I've been awake until 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, but I've also achieved something, so I'm going to go to bed and pass out.
So was it quite cathartic, even at the time, to have got that out of your system?
Oh,
you got back to sleep?
Absolutely, yeah, because otherwise you're lying there with adrenaline running through your system over all these things that just really should not matter in the moment. It's so very much a therapeutic. And I find music's like that. I find if you've got something on your mind, or if there's, what you were saying before, is there a subconscious thing? And I think absolutely, because when there is a line or a hook in your mind, it's very interesting to pull that thread in the moment and see where it takes you.
Another politician dodges all his tax.
Surprise, surprise.
Another failed dictatorship cannot face the facts.
Surprise, surprise.
Another big oil company wipes its crocodile tears.
Surprise, surprise.
Am I really supposed to care after all these years? I am the devil and I'll whisper in your ear. I am to revel and spoil all that you hold dear. You'll have to trust me and just take me on my word. I'm only joking, 'cause that'd be absurd. Surprise, surprise. Surprise, surprise. My apathy keeps rising for this world that I despise. Surprise, surprise. Surprise, surprise. Enlightenment is blinding, it's just inaction in disguise. Another religious scandal buried in a child.
Surprise, surprise.
Another corporation tearing down the wild.
Surprise,
A
surprise.
warming planet we've catalyzed sets itself ablaze.
Surprise,
6,000 years that we've survived, I'll admit that I'm amazed. I am the devil and I'll whisper in your ear. I am to revel and spoil all that you hold dear. You'll have to trust me and just take me on my word. I'm only joking, 'cause that'd be absurd. Surprise, surprise. Surprise, surprise. My apathy keeps rising for this world that I despise. Surprise, surprise. Surprise, surprise. Enlightenment is blinding, it's just inaction in disguise. Another scheming middleman wants to take his fill.
surprise, surprise.
Another media platform becomes an agenda shell.
Surprise, surprise.
Another depressing acoustic song written by a chum.
Surprise, surprise.
Nowhere to run, no bridge high enough to take that fucking jump. I am the devil and I'll whisper in your ear. I am to revel and spoil all that you hold dear. You'll have to trust me and just take me on my word. I'm only joking, 'cause that'd be absurd. Surprise, surprise. Surprise, surprise. My apathy keeps rising for this world that I talent is blinding, it's just inaction in disguise.
So, Richard, you've obviously taken us through something of your journey in terms of acquiring instrument, of developing your own songwriting, but relatively recently you've taken that out on the road and been performing it. Tell us a bit about how that began.
It's been a really fun journey, actually. Until I was writing songs on the bouzouki, I'd never been singing and playing at home. There was maybe one or two songs I could stumble through at the best of times, but this has been a really natural process, and being involved in the sort of local Berwick music scene, or should I say being invited into the Berwick music scene, has been fantastic. There's been so much support, and it's very encouraged to just get up and try whatever you feel like doing, which is lovely. So having that encouragement, and then on top of that, the drive from the new instrument, it's been a really organic process of being invited to open mics and trying to get over that anxiety of performing and things going horribly wrong and things going very well. And I've come to the conclusion now that if it's going to go horribly wrong, make sure it goes absolutely terribly, because at bare minimum it is entertaining to watch a car crash in slow motion. We
say anxiety, but do you actually enjoy it when you're up there? Enjoy sharing your music? I
enjoy playing the music, and I enjoy other people enjoying the music. A lot of the great musicians that I've seen, I really enjoy the little openers that they have to their songs, just a little bit of insight, and it brings another sort of layer of context to what they're playing, and I think that's really lovely, and that's encouraged me to share a little bit, even just a very, very brief opening to a song. It's lovely to have that connection as an audience member to the person performing, and as a performer to pass to them as well.
And have you found that sort of audience response?
They've been really good, yeah. I don't think, like I say, if I ever do it horribly, I'm very open to owning my mistakes and just being with the crowd on this one. Like, yes, this is how bad it's going. Thank you for having me. And, they tend to respond well to just me being humbled by the situation.
So there are plenty of places we can catch you locally. Meanwhile, Richard Swan, thank you ever so much for coming in and talking with us today. It's been fascinating to hear some of the processes that go on, as well as in your music making, as well as hearing some of your journey. That's been brilliant. We've got time for one more song. This is perhaps one of the latest you've written. Tell us about Oak and Acorn.
Oak and Acorn's a really lovely song. I'd very recently... Like I say, I wasn't in the folk scene before for doing this, and I went to see Martin Simpson, and he'd been speaking to a female artist friend of his, and she'd recommended to him writing a song from the perspective of the land rather than as a humanity type song. And I'd had a short story that I'd written a good number of years ago about this old man who'd always lived in a village. He'd set his roots there. He'd never left. But he was getting of an age now where all his friends were passing on. And he's still kind of there, and he's not experienced anything. And his granddaughter came to town, and I think she was on a gap year, and he had nothing to lose. And she was like, you need to tear up your roots and come traveling. Like, we'll see the world together before we both either settle down or croquet. And it was a really lovely, almost like modern fable. And it was just one that I'd had from a dream. I'd dreamt I was on an aeroplane and I was actually talking to Oak, and he affectionately called his granddaughter Acorn. And it just kind of, it doesn't follow the exact same story beats, But it was lovely to translate that into a folk song, like an actual kind of old-timey folk song. And I really enjoyed writing it.
Let's have a listen to it once again. Richard, thanks ever so much for coming in today. It's been a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you for having me. Absolute pleasure being here.
And I am the oldest oak in the land, and here I stand, a monumental pillar to the fires which I stoke for a passion of a divine time, long before your own. A brighter, greener pasture for an acorn to be sown. So I bowed back my branches, an acorn I did thrown, aiming far past the horizon, brighter skies than I had known, hoping he would take seed and decree this land his right, and grow to push the clouds back, though never in my sight. I told him, go little acorn, learn to fly, and don't be afraid to keep your roots. You'll never soar if you don't try, and don't remain under people's boots. Years were filled with silence, an age did come and go. My contemporaries grew weary and their branches all hung low. The last of them were lost to an apocalyptic storm. No time to mourn their loss. At my roots a fresh acorn, and she said, I've travelled past the line, upon the winds of change I ride, and I bring news of your son from across that great divide. And pro that he did, into a Goliath among his peers. He was head among the family, home to foxes and the deers. He'd give shelter to the needy and anyone he oughter, and he grew a very special acorn, his one and only daughter, he said. Go little acorn, learn to fly, and don't be afraid to keep your roots. You'll never soar if you don't try, and don't remain under people's boots. So go little acorn, touch that sky, and shed your tears and fears and grow new shoots, and always walk with your head high, and follow that sun to where it suits.